Alright guys, back with another NBA binder. But unlike my other NBA videos where I usually focus on one player, I'm going to do this entire binder in one video, no matter how long it takes. I'm recording straight to my laptop, so storage should not be an issue. But the reason I'm doing that is because in this binder, each player only has like 2 or 3 pages. Because these are players that I don't really collect. They're just like some solid players from back in the day. Most of these cards used to be in a big 5,000 count box. But I think it was about a year ago that I decided to take them out of that box and put this binder together, because I can just enjoy these cards more this way, kind of flipping through here. This is actually not the first player in the binder. I just kind of opened it to that spot. Let's start from the beginning. In the beginning here, I just have like some former Knicks, but they're pictured with other teams here, so I just put them in here. So you got Bernard King and Herb Williams. Got Derek Harper, who was a solid player for a bunch of teams. Hubert Davis. Some Charles Oakley cards with some of his other teams. And finally, here's a guy who wasn't a former Knick, Chris Mullin. He's a Hall of Famer, and Bernard King's a Hall of Famer. But for the most part, you're not going to see like Hall of Famers or superstars in here. It's going to be a lot of kind of unsung hero type players. Mark Price, he was an all-star a few times, but not a Hall of Famer. I don't know if he was ever quite considered a superstar, but again, just a solid player from that era. As I've said to a lot of you guys, during this era, I was watching pretty much any NBA game. Didn't matter who the two teams playing were. We would get all the Knicks and Nets games here locally. The Nets were pretty bad during that time, but I would still watch all their games anyway, just to see the other teams that would come in and play against them, and same thing with the Knicks. So I would watch pretty much 82 Knicks games a year, 82 Nets games a year, plus whatever games were on NBC on Sundays, and whatever games were on TNT and TBS during the week. So yeah, I was watching a lot of NBA during those days. Remember a lot of these guys. Look at Kevin Johnson. You saw Muggsy Bogues there. These guys were pretty good players, but never considered the best player on their teams. It's a nice one there. Dan Marley, he was pretty popular, but again, never considered the main superstar. Danny Manning, I guess you could say, was the main player for the Clippers for a few years. A few more Danny Manning cards. So yeah, when I say I don't collect these guys, I'll obviously try to add a few to fill some of these spaces, but what I mean is I'm not trying to get 200 cards of each of these players or anything like that. Just a few nice ones to fill a few pages. That's good enough for me. Here you got Rick Smits. He was a solid center. Remember him a lot for those battles between the Pacers and Knicks. Ended up having a lot of foot injuries, which kind of hurt his overall stats. You got Mark Jackson. He was another player during that rivalry, and obviously also a former Knick. Twice played for the Knicks. And these are two different ones. One of them is like a gold Reebok stamp on the back. Rod Strickland. Got one missing there. Not sure what the hell that's about. Guess I took something out of there for some reason. But yeah, Rod Strickland, another really good point guard to watch. Really smooth point guard. Always seemed to put the ball in the right spot. But again, I think he only made 1 or 2 all-star teams. And you got Chris Jackson, who eventually changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. And he can still ball. He's been playing in that, I forget what it's called, that league that Ice Cube put together that they played during the summer. But yeah, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf has played in that a few times and can still play. Obviously not NBA rules, but still doing his thing. And you got Mookie Blaylock, yet another good point guard, mostly with the Hawks. Played with the Nets early in his career, and not sure if he played anywhere else at the end of his career. And you got Vladi Diva. Got a rookie there. I try to get at least one rookie of each of these guys. If I'm missing a few, then that's something I'll try to add. Or an insert or refractor. Just try to add a few nice things to make the binder look a bit better. Yeah, just kind of a fun thing to work on. Not very expensive to add stuff to this binder. And most of these I already had. Like I said, they were in a box, and little by little, I just started taking out some of these players. Charles Smith, another former Knick. Anthony Mason, yet another former Knick. I believe I got one, if not both of those, from Bob Lewis. Cliff Robinson, I really like watching him. He's like one of the first big men that I saw shooting from the outside. Nowadays, all the big men do it, but around this time, there was only like a handful of big guys that could shoot the three, but he was one of the better ones at doing it. Passed away, I think, like a year ago. Was also on Survivor a few years ago. A really nice one there. Sean Elliott, very underrated player. Always kind of overshadowed, first by David Robinson and then by Tim Duncan. But knocked down a lot of big shots. But again, that's kind of the theme of this binder, kind of these unsung guys or guys that weren't really appreciated or forgotten about. Nick Anderson, really good scorer initially, and then when Shaq and Penny came along, his stats kind of went down a bit. Still had some pretty good years, but obviously was not getting as many shots. Another Orlando Magic player from that time. He actually really benefited from playing with Shaq because Shaq would get double teamed and throw it out to 3D as they call them, and he would knock down a lot of wide open jump shots. But again, when you see like a few spaces here, if I could just add a couple cards to fill that page, that'll be cool. That'll be good enough for me. And you got Rick Fox, started with the Celtics and probably most known for his time with the Lakers. Another guy that was on that star-studded Lakers team, but did his thing, helped them win a few championships. I think he was there for at least 2 of the championships they won, if not all 3. And then D. Brown, former dunk champion. A few shots from the dunk contest there. Played a few years with the Celtics. There's one with the Raptors. Not sure if he played anywhere else after that. And Kendall Gill, really liked him. Liked him when he was with Seattle and played a bit with the Nets. So again, just like the Knicks, if I have Nets cards on them, that'll be in the New Jersey Nets binder. There you have him with Seattle and Charlotte. There's another D. Brown. Cedric Ceballos, another really solid player. He had kind of an up and down career. He started with Phoenix, was kind of inconsistent, then had some good years with the Lakers, then went back to Phoenix and kind of tailed off a bit again. But again, for those few years, he was good. I liked watching him. And you got yet another former Knick here, John Starks. Some of his Warriors cards. Some really nice ones, actually. Nice Flair Showcase, an EX, gold label. A few with the Bulls, one with Utah. I believe that was the last team he played with. Eldon Campbell, he was a solid power forward / center. Played with the Lakers and Hornets. Those are the 2 teams I most remember him with, but there he is with Seattle. Derek Coleman, former #1 pick of the Nets. So again, all of his Nets cards won't be in here, but there he is with the Sixers and Hornets. Another guy that had kind of an up and down career. Started pretty good, then kind of got out of shape and looked like he might be out of the league soon, but then got himself in somewhat better shape and became like a solid veteran guy to have on your bench. And Kenny Anderson, he was along with Derek Coleman those Nets days early on. Another guy that kind of bounced around. I like watching him, but one of the knocks on him was always he kind of didn't score quite as much as people thought he should. But still kind of a fun point guard to watch. There you got the Plastic Man, Stacey Augman. There's his Upper Deck rookie, 91 Upper Deck. Did those kind of rookies before 92 Bowman. I believe there were a few other photos like that in that set. Yeah, some nice looking Hawks cards there. Here's another guy that then bounced around a few other teams. Another former Hawk here, well, Heat and Hawks. Then he played for a few other teams as well. I think he might have been on one of the Spurs championship teams later on. But yeah, played most of his career with the Hawks. Really liked watching him. Again, a good scorer, but never quite at that superstar level. Kind of a shade below superstar level. Insert right there. There he is with Portland. Tyrell Brandon, another player I really liked watching, which really you could say about anybody in this binder, but yeah, really solid point guard. Kind of started having some injuries. By the time he got to Minnesota, wasn't quite the same player anymore, but for a few years there in Cleveland, he was definitely one of the best point guards in the league. And you got Doug Christie, pretty solid shooting guard / small forward for a few teams. Really liked him during his time with the Kings, which oddly enough I don't have a Kings card of him in here, but yeah, I think those were his best seasons. You got Dale Davis. He was just kind of like a throwback type big man. Didn't really have a ton of skill, but he could throw it down, he could rebound, he could block some shots, and he would foul the hell out of you if you tried to take it into the lane and lay it up. There he is with Portland, where he went later on. Now you got Antonio Davis, who also played on the Pacers at the same time as Dale Davis. They used to call them the Davis brothers, but they weren't really brothers. They were just two big guys with the last name of Davis. But Antonio actually had more all-around skill. Actually, he developed more all-around skill. I really liked him because he worked hard to become a good player. He was a second-round pick, and like I said, worked hard, got a little bit better every year, and eventually became like a borderline all-star type of guy. I think he actually might have made the all-star team once or twice. And you got Robert Orri. A lot of people know him. Big Shot Bob, which I've heard he hates that nickname, but definitely knocked down a lot of big shots for the Rockets and Lakers and Spurs. I think he ended up with 6 or 7 championships between all those teams. A few nice finest cards. A die cut from after he retired. Another former Houston Rocket, Sam Cassell. Another guy that bounced around to 6 or 7 teams. Yeah, his rookie year played with Houston and won a championship on that team that beat the Knicks in the finals. Then a few years later they traded him, and after that played for a bunch of teams. There he is with Phoenix. So I think he might have gone there in the Charles Barkley trade where Phoenix sent Barkley to the Rockets. Then he played with the Bucks, T-Wolves, and he also played with the Nets for a few years, maybe a few other teams. It's a funny one there. Charles Barkley always called him Alien. You can kind of see why right there. Nick Van Exel is another guy I really liked watching. Nick the Quick. He kind of had that street ball style of play, which as a fan was fun to watch, but I'm sure as a coach it wasn't all that fun because he would sometimes kind of break the offense and take some wild shots. And he also had off the court issues or issues with coaches. But when he had his head on straight, he was really good. There he is with Dallas and Portland. Jamal Mashburn. One of you guys had asked me a while ago to do a Jamal Mashburn video, and I forget who it was, but at the time I said I don't really have that many cards of him, so it didn't make sense to make a video just for him, just to show 2 pages, but here they are. Here are my Mashburn cards. A few rookies, a few nice second-year cards. Nice shiny one. Then he went to the Heat. He was part of the Heat-Knicks rivalry back when that rivalry was really hot. I guess he did play for the Charlotte Hornets and New Orleans Hornets. I was wondering that recently when I showed an autograph of him. Next you got Vin Baker. Yet another guy that I really enjoyed watching. Which you wouldn't think that, by the way, his career kind of ended, but early in his career he was really good. He was like a borderline 7-footer, but had good handle, had a nice little mid-range jump shot. He could post up. Just a really skilled player, but ended up having some injuries and some alcoholism issues, and I think some depression issues as well, so his career kind of tailed off a bit. It's a nice insert there. Wouldn't mind completing that insert set. I think I have 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, if you know anything about me, you know I love Flair Showcase. Got row 2, row 1, and row 0 there. Yeah, there. He eventually went to Seattle, which I think is where he started to fall off a bit. Got some more Milwaukee and Seattle cards here. Some nice ones. He used to appear in a lot of insert sets because, again, people forget, like, for a while he was one of the better big men in the league. And I think there's the last player here. You got George Mirossan, who I've talked about before. Kind of an interesting guy. Didn't have a lot of skill, but he was huge, 7'7". And to his credit, he worked hard enough to stick in the league for like 4 or 5 years. That's a cool one there with Sean Bradley, who was 7'6". They were always kind of compared. They were drafted in the same year, but I think Bradley was a slightly better player. Had a bit more skill and better shot blocker. But yeah, I love getting some George Mirossan cards. Just a fun player to get some cards of. Fun player to look at some highlights of. And a couple more big George cards. And so that's it. That's the end of another binder video. No particular reason why I chose this one today. Just was putting some stuff in here and figured I would show it before putting it back. So I will talk to you guys again next time.